Hello my friends, William Poloniak here again from Whole Health Foundation. Today I'm making another garden harvest juice with collard greens, about a dozen collard leaves, and one whole celery plant, plus some beet tops and other produce. Let me show you the rest of my ingredients. In addition to my beet tops, my collard greens, and my celery, I have carrots, of course, one whole French sorrel plant, one large beet, ginger, a whole garlic, and 140 grams of turmeric. So let's start making some juice. Now, as you can see, I'm using the front-loading feed tube, which eliminates blowback 100%. The straight up and down feed tubes will spit produce up to your ceiling, and if you've owned a Norwalk juicer before or a Whole Health Foundation juicer and you haven't had the front-loading feed tube, you know what I mean. Your ceiling will be plastered with produce. So the first thing I'm going to do is install the near zero blowback cutter, and you can see it has over 80 sharp teeth cut into the cutter, and that enables you to cut your produce 4 degrees centigrade cooler. So we'll tighten the wing nuts, plug in the thermometer, and I'm using the J grid for juice that does a better job on greens, and I'm going to start with 3 or 4 ice cubes to cool down the feed tube and the cutter, because we're already up to 22, almost 23 degrees. Now the first thing I'm going to start with is collard greens, and I'm going to take 2 leaves at a time, turn it into a tube, and feed in the stem end in first. Rotate my bowl and I'll continue with collard greens. Now these leaves are so large, I'm going to put in one at a time. Put a little celery in now. Now celery is very, very fibrous. Now look how well that cutter does. Rotate my bowl, a little more celery. I'm really amazed at how well this cuts through celery. And remember, less produce is more effective, so don't put a whole wad of it. Put as little as possible. Now we're up to 24 degrees. You can go as high as 35, but I like to keep it below 20. So 3 more ice cubes. And we'll continue with collard greens. Now here's the last of my collard greens. Now I notice my motor is working very hard, and I'm already up to 25 degrees centigrade. So I'm going to do 2 things. First, I'm going to put some ice cubes through. Then I'm going to clean my grid. Now to clean the grid. And as I suspected, a lot of fiber from the greens, especially the celery. So clean my grid on both sides, hold it in the palm of your hand. Don't hold it like that. In the palm of your hand, scrape the fiber off on both sides, reassemble and continue. And now I'm going to start with my French sorrel. More French sorrel. Now for the garlic. Put the whole head in there. Rotate your bowl. More French sorrel. turmeric, Here's the last of my French sorrel. And we'll do my ginger. Next I'm going to do my large beet, but I'm going to have to cut it into quarters because it's too big to fit into the feed tube. So we'll cut this into quarters and feed 1 quarter at a time. More beet tops. Now I'm going to feed in my carrots, and at first I'm going to feed in only 2 carrots. Then I'm going to switch from the J grid, which is larger for greens, and install the number 2 grid, which is 1/8 inch holes. So first a couple of carrots. Now I'm going to switch grids. We'll clean the J grid, J for juice. And notice how I put the grid in the palm of my hand to scrape it clean. And that's going to go into the sink, and we'll clean that later and put in the number 2 grid, and then we'll continue with carrots. But first I'm going to put in 3 ice cubes because we're up to 20 degrees. Then we'll continue with carrots. Sometimes you can put 2 carrots at once. You can reverse the small end to the big end, put in 2 or 3 at a time, depending on how big your carrots are. Here's the last of my carrots. Now I want to point out one thing that I love about this front-loading feed tube. I can actually see in here to see if I've shredded everything, and if not, or even if you're in doubt, put some carrot pulp in the feed tube and push any last shreds of produce through. Now the next thing I'm going to do is clean the grid and the feed tube, and then make some juice after I mix my produce. Now I want to point out that I always clean my feed tube with a brush that comes with every juicer sold by Whole Health Foundation. And if you didn't buy your juicer from me, get one of these large brushes from any store that sells them and clean your feed tube every time you make juice. I've seen some juicers with a buildup inside the feed tube that is just terrible. So the next thing I'm going to do is clean my front of my juicer. Now with a wet brush I'm going to clean the pulp off the round escutcheon and the front of the juicer, and then use the spray nozzle, or you could use a damp sponge and do the same thing. Now before I mix my produce, I want to point one thing out. Always remove the cutter from the machine, put it in top with the hole facing down so you get good drainage, and after you've cleaned the grid holder, put it in. And next we'll mix the produce. Next I'm going to thoroughly mix the carrot juice with the greens juice. Whenever you have carrots in your mix, you do not have to use bamboo liners because your pulp will not stick to the cloth if you've got carrots in there. So we'll mix this in both directions until we get a very, very good mix. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is put 3 huge scoops in center of each cloth, and I'm going to press 2 cloths full of pulp at one time and fold them in thirds like so. Nice tight package. The tighter the better. It'll fold back here to enable the folding, and pull this into a very tight package and set it aside. And then we'll fill one more. And then I'm going to press 2 packages at a time, and later I will show you how I can get 10% more juice using a Whole Health Foundation model juicer with this solid bottom plate and all the other premium parts. So there we have 2 packets. They'll go in the center of the tray, centered left to right, centered front to back. Make sure it's on the press plate properly. All the way back it off a little bit, turn it on, and we'll continue preparing cloths. When I'm on my last cloth, I advance that all the way. Now, this is what I call my 6-cloth less work method, because it does save time, and that's what you want. Pull this forward, that goes over, the spent cloths go on top. 2 more cloths full of pulp into the press. Again, centered left to right, centered front to back, adjusted if need be, all the way back it off a little bit. Now you never throw away the spent pulp. It's very, very dry, but what you do next is put 2 scoops on top, and later we'll put only 1 scoop because the patty's getting thicker and thicker. So we'll put it in thirds again. And again, as I said, when you're on your last cloth, advance that all the way. And 2 more scoops. Pull this forward, that goes over, the spent cloths go on top, and we continue in that same rhythm. 2 more cloths in the press, centered left to right, centered front to back, all the way back it off a little bit. And again, do not throw away the pulp, but continue packaging until we're done. Now I'm on my last cloth, and also the collection bowl is very, very full. So what I'm going to do is put the tray back, but not a little, a lot, so it's very obvious. You don't want to put it back just a little bit, and that's to prevent this from dripping on the countertop. If you put it back just a little, you will forget, you'll damage your tray. So put it back a lot, make it obvious. And I'll finish folding this cloth of pulp, and then we're going to fill some bottles. So this goes forward, that goes over. These 2 cloths in here I'm going to put on top and fill some bottles. Now I'm filling these bottles from the back side so the camera gets a good angle. And notice I'm leaving about 10% for water. I'm going to top it off with distilled water. You could use filtered water, you could even use bottled water. So we'll continue filling these bottles and then we'll make more juice. Now I'm going to pull my tray forward so it sits on the press plate properly. Put 2 more cloths full of pulp, again centered left to right, centered front to back, all the way back it off a little bit. Now I notice there's some puddling in my bowl, so I'm going to take this pulp and put it in the puddle to absorb all that juice. I will take this spent pulp and crush it up and put it in this puddle down here. And then fill another cloth with this pulp. And 3 scoops now that we've taken out that spent pulp. Now, because we still have a little bit of a puddle in here, I'm going to do the same thing, advance this all the way when I'm on the last cloth, crush it up, put it in the puddle, and I'm going to mix all that dry pulp with this puddle of juice in here. Now, as you can see, my friends, I have repackaged the already pressed spent pulp into 3 double packets, and I'm going to use a measuring beaker to measure how much juice we get from that. But first, I'm going to put this full bowl of juice into bottles. And I'll remind you, I'm leaving about 10% for adding water. I'm going to add distilled water because I have a water distiller, but you can add filtered water or even bottled water. So far 10 bottles and a little bit. As I said earlier, I'm going to use a measuring beaker to measure how much extra juice we can get from repackaging the pulp. And I wanted to remind you, the juicer I'm using has this solid bottom plate, which enables you to press at least 10% more juice. And the nutrients in that last 10% are the most valuable nutrients. So centered left to right, front to back, all the way back, back it off a little bit. Now we've got our second set of cloths in there now. We've got over 8 ounces of juice. So let's put in our third set. It's going to be a tight fit. That will manage. Alright, we want to get these cloths in the center. And once you get juice flow, advance it all the way. Keep your eye on the collection container. You don't want it to overflow. Now I've already pressed my cloths a second time. I'm going to stop now because this is going to overflow. So I'm going to lift this up so it doesn't drip on the countertop, pour this into the collection container, and I'm going to press my last 2 repackaged a second time cloths. Let's see if we can get that in there. Oh, just barely. Right in the center, centered left to right, centered front to back, all the way back. I'm going to back it off a little bit this time. Yes, all these spent packages are wet on the edges, so I could repackage them again. Well, there's 5 ounces. 6 ounces. Well, that's 24 more ounces of juice. That's 2 extra bottles of juice. And then I'm going to cap them and put them in the refrigerator. And you notice I'm filling them till they overflow so that there's no oxygen in the bottles whatsoever, as you can see from the rest of these. The next to the last step is to scrub off any pulp on these cloths and then fold them into thirds as they came in the package, and then press the water out and put them in the freezer. So here we go, into the press. So catch the water in the tray. And as soon as the water is out of there, I'm going to put them in a plastic bag and put them in the freezer. And then I'm going to clean the upper plate and the side plate. And my last step is to clean the upper plate and the side plate, which quite frankly most people forget to do. Alright, my friends, as you can see, I have 5, 10, 12 bottles of juice. And remember, these last 2 bottles came from pressing the already spent pulp that most people would have thrown away. And we did that by repackaging the pulp into a tight packaging and pressing again. And we have enough for a taste test. So let's do a taste test. Alright, my friends, another taste test. Let's see what this formula tastes like. Oh, very tasty. I can definitely taste the celery in this formula. Well, my friends, I hope you like what you've seen, and if you do, please tell a friend. If you'd like to call me, my phone number is 760-753-0321. My email address is developtrust@cox.net, and my web page is wholehealthfound.com. See you in the next video.